The daily news analysis for 17th of April 2025 with me, Jatin Verma. These are the news articles that we are going to discuss. Finally, the Waqf Amendment Act 2025 lands up in the Supreme Court. What are the four aspects on which the Supreme Court has commented today? That will help you in better understanding of the Waqf Amendment Bill and salient provisions of the Constitution, the fundamental rights like Article 26. So this is going to be the one lead article of the day that we are going to see in today's news article in news analysis. Then this is about Indian economy, monetary policy. Two back-to-back monetary policy rate cuts. The repo rate have been cut, and the editorial has appeared in the Hindu newspaper analyzing the good and the bad effects of the good news and the bad effect in a way. What is the bad side of the rate cut? What is happening in the agricultural arena? Even though the food inflation has come down, this article talks about that aspect, guys. So there is more to news analysis, some interesting articles, how the fair and remunerative price for sugarcane is determined. Is the same body, Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices, determining the sugarcane prices, or is there some other body that determines it? Okay. Then UN watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) says that the Iran is very close to developing a nuclear weapon. So what more does it say? How much of enrichment is required of uranium 235 in order to develop a nuclear weapon? 60%, 90%. The technical aspect also we are going to talk about briefly over here, right? So just pardon me. Okay, now it is working. Before we delve further into the news articles, news analysis, a piece of information about All India Prelims mock test. So what is happening is many of you are just preparing. You are groping in the dark as to how to prepare for UPSC. We at PW Only IAS, we periodically conduct these open prelims mock tests for the ones who are appearing in prelims 2025. If you are someone who is appearing, then you should definitely attempt this test, which is going to be held in both online as well as offline modes. For the registration link, the link is given in the description box. And if you are someone who is planning for 2026, you should also appear. Why? You would get an idea as to what type of questions are asked in the UPSC exam, a kind of simulation exercise for you to have a real hand experience of how the UPSC exam hall or how the UPSC paper feels like. So this is the way. Now 20th of the April is the date of examination, the mock test that we are conducting. You should register the sooner the possible. Why? Because slots are limited. After X number of students, there will be no more enrollments both in the online as well as offline mode. Now coming to these things, International Atomic Energy Agency is a UN watchdog for keeping a surveillance, keeping an eye on the countries which are developing nuclear weapons. And Iran's case is peculiar one. Iran has been given an exemption as per Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which was proposed by permanent 5 members of United Nations Security Council plus one other country. What is the name of the other country? Please answer in the comment section. Akshita is asking a question. I am in class 9 and taking all the lectures for time pass. Okay, so that is a good thing. Sometimes time pass becomes a kind of hobby, and that leads you to a productive thing. Now, United Nations nuclear watchdog Rafael Grossi, look at his name. His name itself is Rafael. On a lighter note, Rafael Grossi says that Iran was not far from possessing nuclear bomb. Shortly before he arrived in Tehran, Iran fought talks with the Iranian leader. Now what is happening is, US President, after he came to the helm of affairs, after he became the president on February 20, 2025, he has been exerting maximum pressure on Iran by levying sanctions, by imposing sanctions which are highly crippling for Iranian economy. But Iran is a tough guy. Iran is already used to these type of sanctions tactics of the US. It is not a new player like anybody else. So Iran knows how to tread through these sanctions, even though these sanctions are affecting Iranian economy. Then after the tough phase of sanctions, as we call it as hot and cold strategy, Donald Trump proposes direct talks between Iran, direct talks between Iranian leaders Ayatollah Khamenei and himself. As the world institutions are preparing for these direct talks, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN watchdog for nuclear weapons, his chief, the IAEA chief, Rafael Grossi, visits Iran. Okay, it is the UN watchdog. So I want some answers from you. When was the IAEA established? In which year was this established? Okay. Now the direct talks are going to be held between US President Donald Trump and Iran. Before this, a survey is being done. A jaisa kind of a thing is being taken, an assessment is being done as to what is the Iran's case, whether Iran is ready to come on to the negotiating table on the terms and conditions proposed by Donald Trump, or is it giving wishy-washy kind of replies. So what does the Iran say? Iran said that please don't come to the negotiating table, asking Iran to completely abolish its nuclear program. That is an unrealistic expectation. This is what the Iranian leader said to IAEA chief. International Atomic Energy Agency chief has been told ki tell Uncle Donald Trump that we are also very close to development of nuclear weapons. So what is the technical side of development of nuclear weapons? Let's first have a look at the nuclear sites of Iran. Okay, this is the Indian engagement. These are the nuclear sites. The green ones are research reactors. So where the research is going on, Bonab, Ramsar. We often hear Ramsar in the context of Ramsar Convention. So what does the Ramsar Convention deal with? Please answer in the comment section. Then Tehran is another nuclear research site. Tehran happens to be the capital. Usually it is observed that the countries are sensible enough to not to have any nuclear research facility in the capital city of the country itself. India would never have a nuclear research facility in New Delhi. Any kind of nuclear accident might harm the establishment, might harm the government institutions located in the capital city. So that's why, anyways, Iran is Iran. Now, coming to the other nuclear reactor sites, we are more interested in these nuclear sites. This is Isfahan. Okay, then Bushehr. Bushehr remains quite in news. It is a coastal city, a kind of port city, which is having a nuclear reactor, nuclear research site, integrated facility it is. Then Natanz and Fordo, Arak. These are the prominent nuclear sites, nuclear facilities of Iran, where so far Iran has been able to develop nuclear weapons, or I would say they have been able to enrich the uranium-235 up to 60% purity. Uranium-235, in order to be converted into a weapons grade uranium, it requires purification to the extent of 90%. Already around this much kilos of they have already purified the uranium to 60% level, and the quantity is 274 kilos. Okay, 605 pounds is the quantity that is in the possession of Iran insofar as 60% purity is concerned. So it is very close to development of nuclear weapons. That is what IAEA chief could assess from all these inspections of these nuclear sites of Iran. He visited nuclear sites, he talked to the officials, and he saw things for himself. He came across the fact that this much quantity has already been enriched up to 60%. In order to develop it into a weapons grade, 90% purification is required, which is not quite far. Okay, US urged only that Iran to return to 3.67% enrichment ceiling. This was the upper cap which was kept by Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action when before Donald Trump, it used to be Barack Obama. Barack Obama used to be the president of USA, and during his tenure as the president, a joint comprehensive plan of action was signed between permanent 5 members of United Nations Security Council and Germany. Plus Germany. Germany is the name of the 6th country. So they had kept the upper limit of 3.67% on Iran. Iran should not have purified uranium-235 to beyond 3.67%. But Iran says this is an unrealistic expectation because Iran is located in a hostile neighborhood. You see, time and again we come across the news articles that Israel is firing missiles against Iran, Iran nuclear sites, etc. Okay, and then Saudi Arabia and Iran are also not at good ties. So there is no reason for Iran to not have a nuclear deterrence for itself. I'm not supporting the nuclear weapons for Iran, but all this hatred has been started by Uncle Sam, the United States, by sowing the seeds of hatred, communalism between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Otherwise, two Muslim countries, but Iran is a Shia Muslim country and Saudi Arabia is a Sunni Muslim country. So these kind of seeds of hatred, seeds of animosity have been sowed by Uncle Sam. Now Uncle Sam says, don't develop nuclear weapons. That's the point. Perhaps let's talk about, leave that to the future. Now let's talk about India's engagement. Okay, India has developed this Chabahar port in the Iran. Okay, there is Chabahar port which takes us to the Zaranj Delaram road of Afghanistan, which will take us to Central Asian countries of Turkmenistan, etc., etc. Right. So we are developing, we have already developed this Chabahar port, and our GMR was also in talks for the development of Farzad B oil and gas plant. India was given the contract, but Chinese companies played the spoil sport. So we have been denied the rights to extract LNG or oil and gas from Farzad B gas plant of Iran. Okay. We have developed this Chabahar port, and the rail link between Chabahar port and Afghanistan will connect the already constructed Zaranj Delaram highway or Garland highway in Afghanistan. That will take us further onwards to the Central Asian economies for export of our goods. But right now the situation is hostile ever since the takeover of Afghanistan by Taliban forces. Okay, we have been developing ties with Taliban though, but the ties cannot be as open as with any democratically elected government. India's policy has been to interact with democratically elected governments only. So this is the context here. How much of the nuclear fuel or the raw material has been enriched by Iran? 60%. Okay, 270 odd kilograms. Now Stuxnet. Let me give you an additional piece of information here. Stuxnet was a computer worm that was triggered at the Iranian nuclear sites. Today we are in the era of internet technologies. Everything, nuclear reactors, our power plants, our solar grids, electricity grids, they are driven by internet commands. So what did US do is, US planted a computer worm that was originally aimed at Iran's nuclear facilities. Stuxnet is the name of this computer worm. Okay, it was a kind of worm to let the nuclear plants malfunction, to let their reactors behave in a weird manner. So they will be out of control of the Iranian control authorities. So these type of tactics are used by the United States of America against its enemy countries to make them agree to its demands. Uncle Sam is, after all, Uncle Sam, and that too when run by Uncle Donald Trump. Right, now moving further, these things are happening. Coming to the editorial about the monetary policy. The previous days, in the last few days, we have been discussing about repo rate cut by RBI. What repo rate cut does is, repo rate leads to the cut of rate of interest by all the banks, including public sector banks like SBI, Punjab National Bank, HDFC, ICICI. So that leads to the easier supply of money, cheaper supply of money, availability of the money at a relatively lower rate of interest for all the investors and consumers. Now that the repo rate is 6%, the rate of interest for borrowers like you and me will be around 7.5% after adding the margin by SBI and other banks like HDFC. So this is leading to a situation where demand will go up, which is a good thing. Okay, repo rate cut. Earlier it was 6.5%, but two back-to-back rate cuts. Earlier from 6.25%, from 6.5% to 6.25%, then 6.25% to 6.5%, 6%. So this has led to a rate of interest, repo rate of interest at 6%, leading to lowering of the rate of interest by all the banks. These steps taken by RBI ease the supply of money. In the light of the fact that food inflation has been declining. Okay, so since food inflation affects everyone, the poor and the rich alike, that is why it is a matter of concern for RBI always to reduce the food inflation. Once the food inflation comes down, RBI reduces the rate of interest. This is a good thing that has happened, as per the editorial titled as The Good and the Bad. Good news and bad. Okay, India's March retail inflation was down to near 6-year low of 3.34%. But the writer says that he is not happy with it. Okay, why the writer is not happy? Writer says that on the other side, what is happening is two consecutive rate cuts signaling the emphasis on growth amid global trade uncertainties. RBI's major concern was that by when the inflation has come down, why not focus on growth? Focus on growth and inflation are the two sides of the pendulum of RBI's monetary policy. RBI has to act in a manner that the physical balance of inflation and growth are balanced. It should not give priority to one over the other. Balance has to be there. A moderate rate of inflation taking care of the growth has to be there. If the rate of interest is increased too high, then people will not be able to borrow. If they will not be able to borrow, the industrialists will not be investing in the new projects. New Tata plant, new mobile phone plants, or new Adani power plant, etc. New investments will not take place. If new investment will not take place, employment will come down. If employment will not be there, people will not be having money to buy goods and services provided by Tatas, Airtel, Jio, Reliance. All these companies will also face a slowdown in the growth, which is not good for economy in the long run. So that is why if the prices, on the other hand, if the prices increase too high, if the inflation is very high, a commodity, a Jio recharge, which was earlier for 300 rupees, it increases to 349 rupees. People stop recharging their mobile phones with that frequency, even though it is an essential item. If petrol prices increase very high, tomato prices go very up, then we may start reducing our consumption of the non-essential items. So that is why again the growth will go down. In both these scenarios, when inflation is too high and when interest rates are too high, the growth is going to suffer. So that is why RBI strives to strike a fine balance between the two sides of the monetary policy, striking a fine balance between growth and inflation. Now that has been achieved, so RBI's focus now, in the light of the tariff war started by the USA, RBI's focus has been to focus more on the growth now, because exports are going to come down. India may not be able to export as much as it was able to export earlier. So that is why the repo rate reduction has already begun translating into lower interest rate on the bank loans, and people will be able to borrow more. In the normal times, this would translate to greater capital inflows into the businesses. As I said, Parle-G company would borrow more money to start investing more, to produce more biscuits, to become a company as good as Good Day, Britannia, etc. Okay, but they are not making investments. In the normal times, the reduction in the rate of interest should have translated into more capital inflows, capital investment, borrowing for the purpose of capital investments, but that is not happening. Dampening investor confidence amid US trade war. Why that is not happening? Investors' confidence, the investment by automobile companies, the investment by Adani, Ambani will not take place, because they know that a trade war has been started by the United States of America. Where will it end? No one knows. That is the problem. Okay, but it comes at a time of dampening investor confidence. US led tariff war or uncertainty is forcing exporters to scramble for newer markets. People are looking towards European Union. The exporters are looking towards European Union, smaller countries like Chile, etc. Their leaders are visiting India, and our export associations are also looking towards the Asian markets. Philippines, Malaysia, etc., Vietnam, etc. Okay, so India's largest buyer of merchandise goods has been America since fiscal year 2022. If America is going to levy heavy tariffs, then exporters are definitely not going to be feeling happy. They are not going to be happy about it. Why? Because their exports will go down. If the duties are going to be very high, they may not be able to export to the USA, which has become India's largest merchandise export destination since 2022. So what should we do? Writer says that the bad side of monetary policy rate cuts is the declining of the agricultural incomes. So what happens is, this is India. Maybe my drawing is not as good, but I love my country as much as anyone else does, right? So if we are not able to export to the US and other emerging market and other developed countries, okay, 2022 US has become a great export destination for India. So what should we do? We should look inwards. Okay, what is the inward area? Urban areas and rural areas. Okay, now rural areas, the article says that ever since the COVID-19, rural areas have been witnessing growth. Okay, the demand has been there, but the problem is the incomes in the rural areas have gone down. Income level of the farmers has come down as compared to the urban areas. Okay, now urban areas income is fueled by manufacturing, service sector. Okay, these are the items produced in the the urban areas. Urban areas income level is roughly 6,000 rupees per capita, whereas the rural areas income level is around 4,000 rupees per capita. When the international engine of India's economy, that is the exports and imports, they are failing or fledgling or struggling, despite because of the US tariff war, despite the rate cut, despite the repo rate cut, the urban sector is not able to see any uptick in growth, because borrowing is not happening, investment is not happening. So where should we look? We should look towards the engines of domestic economy, rural areas consumption. Writer says that even though this is a reason to celebrate that food inflation has come down, but the coming down of the food inflation has led to the bad side, has led to the bad effect that farmers' income in the rural areas, they are coming down. Farmers' income is declining. Why the farmers' income is declining? Reasons have been given in this article. These are the reasons. Widespread shortages in the cold storage facilities. Tomato prices in Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, they came down to rupee 1 per kg. So much so that farmers, they started dumping their tomatoes and started using tomatoes as cattle feed. Okay, why this would happen? This happens when the farmers are indulging in the distress selling. The farmers have no option to store their tomatoes in the godowns. We do not have refrigerated godowns. We do not have refrigerated transport facilities, right? If we do not have refrigerated transport facilities, okay, refrigerated trucks, etc. So what will happen? Farmers will have to sell rather than letting the tomatoes, potatoes, onions at various points of time rot in the farmland. So widespread shortages. FCI takes care of only rice and wheat. There should be a refrigeration corporation of India. You getting my point? Try to understand the emotions behind it. So what we need is refrigerated food corporation or refrigerated fruits and vegetables corporation of India, so as to stop the phenomena of wastage of 40% of fruits and vegetables that are allowed to rot. We produce 100%, 40% of fruits and vegetables, they are allowed to rot because we do not have storage facilities. This is the reason that farmers' income is declining. In order for India to have the ambitious targets of $5 trillion economy achieved, in order for us to achieve those things, we need to balance the engines of economy. What are the engines of economy? Rural consumption, domestic consumption, urban domestic consumption, rural domestic consumption, and international exports. So that when the one tire of the economy gets punctured, when the international exports are facing some crisis, we can rely on the rural areas demand. Or when the rural areas demand is fledgling because of monsoon vagaries, because of weather vagaries, we can focus on the urban areas of urban engines of growth, manufacturing, services, etc. This is what the writer is saying now. The reason that food inflation has come down is a reason to celebrate. But it is a reason to feel bad about, it is a reason to be sad also, to be sad about the fact that farmers' income is coming down. The decline in the food inflation is coming at the cost of decline in the farmers' income, which in turn is leading to a situation that pardon me, which in turn is leading to a situation that farmers, the rural average household income is just 4,000 rupees per month. If this income would have been handsome or decent enough, then farmers' income would have led to revival of growth for Indian economy in the times of international tariff war. This is what this article is hinting at. Okay, so what do we need to do? Let's talk about more points here. Reasons for the decline in the farmers' income: temperature controlled transport for perishables. For your any vegetable being produced in the rural areas, it needs to be transported to urban areas, the urban centers. For that to happen, we need transport facilities which are refrigerated. We need cold storage facilities. The silos have to be constructed. Market inaccessibility for the farmers. The markets, the agricultural produce marketing committees based mandis or grain markets or fruits and vegetable markets, they are located at quite a distant area, distant places. So much so that farmers are not able to access them. They are monopolized by Artiya, the commission agents, middlemen. Shrinking land holdings. A significant 86% of Indian farmers make a living from less than 2 hectares of land. So what happens is, when the piece of land is very small, the cost of production goes up. Why? A farmer having less than 2 hectares of land will have to hire a tractor or for plowing of the farm, etc., etc. Okay, we'll have to buy a new tractor or harvester of his own, or he can hire on rent. But when the piece of land is very small, the cost of hiring also goes up. So these are the problems. Now, consequence of all this is that a 2021-2022 NABARD survey, National Agricultural Bank for Rural Development, says that average monthly agricultural household income is 13661. A more comprehensive NSSO 2019 survey gives us the realistic picture. It says that a survey estimates this to be 10,000 rupees per annum, per month. These figures are lower than those in other emerging economies such as China. In China, farmers are earning a decent level of income. Mexico and Brazil. Rural urban income gap. While the rural consumption has been rising since COVID-19 years, monthly per capita consumption expenditure for fiscal year 2024 in the rural areas was around 4,000 rupees. So this is what I have written here. Okay, 4,000 rupees is the expenditure, consumption. Income is just between 10,000 rupees to 13,000 rupees. So this is the kind of crisis. Whereas in urban areas, the income is 7,000 rupees, thanks to urban way of living and higher levels of income in the urban India. So we need to bridge this income gap in order for us to have three engines of, or three cars of, Indian economy working in parallel: the rural economy, the urban economy, and the export sector. Okay, the rural sector growth will take care of the decline in the growth if something happens in the export sector, and the export sector will take care of the growth when something happens in the domestic sectors of rural and urban India. So this is how the economy should be propelled further. Otherwise, we would be vulnerable to the tantrums of Donald Trump and the likes, to the supply chain vagaries of China. Vulnerability of India will be there. We cannot be totally dependent upon exports or urban India for manufacturing and service sector, or rural India for agriculture, because something or the other keeps on happening. Sometimes rural India will be facing problems in the form of poor monsoon. Well, this is going to be a La Nina year. Monsoon is going to be good. So we should rely more on urban India. Right, now coming to another related article. It is from the Maharashtra. Bombay High Court had declared ultra vires or null and void the order of 2022 Maharashtra government, the earlier government led by the Thackeray government that was being run. Okay, so what has happened in that order, in that during the tenure of that government said that sugarcane mills, the sugar mills in Maharashtra, can pay the farmers in 2 installments. Okay, whenever a farmer sells the sugarcane, just allow me a minute. Whenever a farmer sells the sugarcane to the sugar mill has to pay to the farmer. This is a farmer. Okay, farmer sells the sugarcane to the sugar mill. The sugar mill has to pay back after crushing within 14 days. Okay, So what will happen then if the farmers are not paid within 14 days? It will be a violation of the rules of the government of India. Okay, so sugarcane farmer should be paid on time within maximum 4 days, 14 days. But sugar mills were allowed in 2021, 2022 by the previous government in Maharashtra that they can pay in 2 EMIs. We are in the culture of installments, credit cards, iPhones. So Maharashtra government allowed this kind of a leeway to sugar mills also. But sugar mills associations, they reached Bombay High Court. Bombay High Court said that no, this order was wrong. I'm using the red color for wrong. Bombay High Court said no, sugar mills are required to pay within 14 days only in a single shot. They cannot be allowed to pay in 2 installments. So that is what is being discussed here. In the light of this Bombay High Court ruling or orders, we are discussing what is fair and remunerative price, who determines the fair and remunerative price, what is the role of the central government, what is the role of the state governments in this determination of the price of sugarcane. So unlike the food crops like wheat and rice, sugarcane is given, wheat and rice are given minimum support price. Okay, the same body is there. The same body, Center for Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices, is there. Roughly for 22 crops, 23 crops, it determines the minimum support price. Okay, MSP system is there. But for sugarcane, what is there? Sugarcane, there is fair and remunerative price, which is determined on the basis of the sucrose content or sugar content in the sugarcane, so that it is fair yet remunerative for the farmers. Now what has happened is this is issued as per the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs decision. Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs gives the decision that this will be the fair and remunerative price for the year 2024-2025. What is the price? 2024-2025, 340 rupees per quintal is the price for sugar cane produce. This has been determined by the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs of the central government. So, central government determines the price which is to be paid by sugar mills across India. Even though the sugar mill might be located in UP, Maharashtra, Karnataka, elsewhere. Okay, UPSC had asked a question way back in 2015, why sugarcane mills are shifting from North India to southern states like Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh. So what is the reason behind it? Please answer. Yes, Uddhav Thackeray. Thank you for helping me with the name. You know, so many names have changed in the recent past that sometimes we tend to forget. Anyways, the effect of Bombay High Court order, the action by Maharashtra government of allowing the sugar mills to pay in 2 installments has been declared invalid. So government resolution of 2022 allowing the EMI payment of or 2 equated installment payment of the sugarcane purchase by the sugar mills has been declared illegal. Now the judgment said that on March 17, 2025, a bench of Bombay High Court said that the sugar mills have to pay as per Sugarcane Control Order 1966. They have to pay within a time of 14 days only. Otherwise, this will be a violation of Sugarcane Control Order. And this has to be read with Maharashtra because Maharashtra's local rules, because it is the state of Maharashtra. Maharashtra Regulation of Sugarcane Price Supplied to Factories Act 2013. This is not important for our purpose because we are preparing for UPSC. We should know that the sugar mills are duty bound to pay to the farmers, sugarcane farmers, within 14 days as per Sugarcane Control Order of 1966. You can memorize this year very easily. Why? Because Green Revolution years these were 1960s, 1970s. Okay, talk about sugarcane, cotton, wheat, rice. Very easy to memorize otherwise. Now, I asked you a question from the geographical point of view, from the geography point of view, GS Mains paper 1. Why the sugarcane factories are shifting from North India, to southern states of India. Earlier, we know that UP is known as sugar ball. Maharashtra is also having a lot of sugar mills. But why the sugar mills are now shifting to Karnataka? Why sugarcane, the farmers in Karnataka have started growing sugarcane? This was a previous year UPSC mains question. Okay, so I have told you how the price is determined. Let's have a a bit more discussion. Cane growers are paid under the center's fair and remunerative price mechanism. This is determined by the central government here, union government. Okay. Now, the fair and remunerative price for sugar cane is decided every year, yes, by the center's Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, headed by the Prime Minister, on the recommendations of Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices, which comes under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Clear? Commission for Agriculture, this comes under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. FRP for sugarcane is decided using the same mechanism as the one used for the determination of MSP for various crops, 23 other crops. So total 24 crops prices are determined by CACP, 23 plus 1, that is sugarcane here. Okay, sugarcane price is FRP, whereas for these crops it is MSP. Done. So this is there. However, while the MSP is not legally guaranteed, you remember about the farmers' protest that was going on. What the farmers who are given MSP on their crops from Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, what were they demanding? They were demanding the legal guarantee of MSP. In a way, they were asking that MSP Guarantee Act should be enacted by the Parliament of India, so that with the privatization of agriculture, warehousing facilities being given to Adanis, Ambanis and various other companies, their entitlement to minimum support price should not be reduced. It should be legally guaranteed. But the government shied away from that, and farmers were protesting against the farm law ordinances later on enacted into the acts. Okay, and then that for Prime Minister's cavalcade convoy of vehicles led by SPG, guarded by SPG, they had to come back while on their way to Punjab for election campaigns. Democracy prevails, right? So obligated to pay FRP within 14 days. We have had enough discussion on that. Failure to clear farmers' dues can even lead to attachment of properties of the sugar mill. But that is not applicable to MSP. If farmers' bills, sugarcane bills, payments are not met on time within 14 days, then sugarcane mills properties can even be sold off or attached for the payment of the sugarcane dues. 23,000 crore rupees, 24,000 crore rupees worth of purchase. Now this was all in this. FRP is linked to the recovery of sugar. How much is the sucrose content, the sugar content in a sugarcane crop of a particular farmer determines the price. The minimum price is 340 rupees for the year, for the harvest season 2024-2025. Clear? Now coming to another news article, the most important news article of the day. Finally, the Waqf Amendment Act 2025 lands in the Supreme Court for a challenge. Prima facie, the Supreme Court said that we are staying the clause in the Amendment Act, Waqf Amendment Act, which says that the Waqf by user clause will lead to the properties coming in the custody of the government. Those properties which have been in usage by the Waqf for the Waqf purposes, for the Muslim religious purposes, since ages, are going to be held in the custody of the government. Supreme Court said that we are staying this clause in the Act, Waqf Amendment Act 2025, because it will create a huge problem. Okay, Supreme Court said that it is going to create a huge problem. Why? Because before the arrival of the Britishers in India, we did not have the Transfer of Property Act. Suppose if I buy a property, I sell a property to you, there will be a Transfer of Property Act related registration on a stamp paper. You will be having that as a title deed, as a proof that I sold off property to you for 50 lakh rupees, for example. Or I gave my property as a donation to Waqf. There was at least a proof, a piece of paper, right? But since there was no piece of paper before the arrival of the Britishers in India, there is no entitlement, no title deed, no stamp paper. So how will the Waqf board, how will the Waqf boards across various states be able to prove that this property was vested in them? This property was transferred by a Muslim follower of Islam to Waqf. Because many of the mosques were constructed in 13th century, 14th century, 15th century, and they are Waqf by user properties. By virtue of the fact that these properties are being used by the Waqf boards, they are their properties. Even though the Waqf boards across various states like UP, Bihar may not have any substantiating evidence to prove that this is their property. The Supreme Court said that we are staying this particular provision in the Waqf Amendment Act, which says that if a Waqf board or Waqf council will not be able to prove that this is their property through the documentary evidence, then that property can be taken back by the government. Because Supreme Court said that it is going to cause a huge problem. Until the Supreme Court decides the final matter, let this clause in the bill, let this clause in the act be stayed. But the Attorney General, Mr. Tushar Mehta, he said that no, we are not in favor of it. We want this provision to continue. Then started the argument in the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court then started dwelling upon all these aspects of the Waqf Amendment Bill, Waqf Amendment Act now. De-recognition of the Waqf by user. The Waqf by user properties will be de-recognized if the Waqf Council or Waqf Board is not able to prove that by the documentary evidence that a person named Tariq or anybody, any Muslim person donated this property, any Raja, any king of the erstwhile era, previous era donated this property to Waqf Board. So there has to be proof, otherwise the property will be de-recognized. Supreme Court said no, put a stay on this thing. Okay, stay means it will not be implemented, but the government did not agree. Then second, Waqf as essential religious practice. Another interesting question that started the debate in the Supreme Court was, is Waqf, the act of donation of the property for religious purposes, is it an essential religious practice in Islam? If that is an essential religious practice, if imagine tomorrow when the case is finally decided and the Supreme Court says that yes, this is an essential religious practice, then you know what will happen. Government cannot interfere with this at all. If and only if government this is declared to be an essential religious practice. So previously many cases in the Supreme Court, many cases in the Supreme Court like triple talaq. So Muslim body said that triple talaq is an essential religious practice, so it cannot be declared illegal. But Supreme Court said constitutional morality, not religious morality is going to prevail. Then Sabarimala judgment. So the ban on the entry of women in the temples, in the Sabarimala temple, was sought to be continued. The petitioners, the Hindu group, said that Sabarimala temple deity does not want women to come around it. Okay, the idol, with due respect, the lord of the Sabarimala temple is a celibate. So he does not want the leader, the women of the productive age group to come to the temple because it is an essential religious practice. But Supreme Court said no, it is not essential religious practice. Likewise in this case, if Waqf will be declared, Waqf means, what is Waqf basically? In simple language, Waqf is an act of donation of one's property to Islamic religion. If Waqf will be declared to be an act of essential religious practice, then government will not be able to interfere. Government will not be able to regulate this practice of this act of donation of the property at all. But this matter is yet to be decided. Second, membership of the Waqf Council. So and the government said that the Attorney General said that out of the 22 members of the Waqf Council at the central level, Central Waqf Council, only 2 members would be the government nominees. Okay, so on this point, very interestingly, the Attorney General said, my lord, only Muslims, there is nowhere written in the constitution that only Muslims or only the people of the same religion can be appointed to the body governing the religion. Okay, so what happened in that case? The Attorney General ended up saying that by this stretch of imagination, my lord, these honorable judges of the Supreme Court cannot sit in judgment, cannot decide the matter of Waqf law. Then we will require the judges to be Muslim only. Supreme Court said that, the Honorable Chief Justice of India said that, no, you are wrong here. When we wear the coat of the judges, when we wear the gown of the judges, we are free from any religion. We are neutral party. So please don't comment on us. So then he said that, the Chief Justice said that, can then be Muslim members appointed to the Hindu management bodies? On that, Tushar Mehta, the Attorney General, was silent on that matter. So basically the point is, can there be Hindu members or non-Muslim members on the body governing Muslim properties or body governing Muslim religious affairs. The judiciary prima facie said yes, there is no problem in that, because other members, majority of the members are going to be Muslims there. Then the last point was on collector's report on the status of Waqf property. So the collector, a government appointee, will decide, a government nominee will decide that, okay, a government nominee, a government representative will decide whether a property is a Waqf property or not. On this, the petitioner, the Kapil Sibal, the lawyer of the petitioner, said that government on collector is a representative of the government. He is not a neutral party, so he might be having an incentive in doing the bid of the government, in doing the calling of the government or local MLA who might be non-Muslim, right? So that is, these all aspects related to Waqf Amendment Act were discussed in the court. Clear? Now, a 3-point interim order. What are the interim orders? Until a final order is arrived at, to stop the undue damage, to stop the undue harm being done to any section of society, Supreme Court gives a temporary order which is called as interim order. Rather than putting the stay on the entire act, Waqf Amendment Act 2025, an interim order talked about just 3 points to balance equities. Number one, the CJI suggested that properties already declared Waqf by courts need not for the time being be denotified or treated as non-Waqf properties until the court finally decides the matter. Clear? Then these would include properties categorized as Waqf by user or Waqf by long usage, by virtue of the fact that somebody was for a long period of time enjoying the property, enjoying the right to property. That should in itself be enough a reason for allowing the continuance of the use by the holder or possessor of such property. Since Waqf boards have been in possession of these properties for a long period of time, they should be allowed to continue until the Supreme Court finally comes up with the final order. This is just an interim order. Then secondly, the CJI noted that the designated government officer could continue to look into whether a property was Waqf or not. So DM will continue, the district magistrate has been allowed to continue to look into the bona fides or verify the whether the property, the status of the property is Waqf property or not. There is no problem in that. Okay. Now, freezing the use of the property. This is a controversial provision that until the Supreme Court final order decides whether a property is a Waqf property or not, property's usage should not be frozen. Usage in the sense that, what if the Waqf board has given on rent of 25 lakh rupees per month that property, which is a Waqf property, to some private industry? So will that 25 lakh rupees, the rental amount, any amount, let's say it is 20 lakh rupees or 5 lakh rupees or 50,000 rupees, that rent will go to Waqf board only. Okay, so until the final order of the Supreme Court comes, usage shall not be freezed. Usage of such Waqf property shall not be freezed. Okay, so this is here. Now the bank accounts cannot be freezed. Likewise, the property's usage, the right to enter the mosque or Waqf property shall not be curtailed. Thirdly, the Chief Justice mulled giving the go ahead to the appointment of non-Muslims as ex officio members in the Central Waqf Council, which is having 22 members, out of which 2 ex officio members will be government appointees. There is no problem in it, the CJI said. So this was the entire gist of the discussion of what happened in the Supreme Court yesterday, and Supreme Court issued the interim orders carrying these 3 points, right? The total 4 points were discussed. These are the 4 points around which these are the 4 aspects around which the discussion happened in the Supreme Court with regard to the legality of Waqf Amendment Act. All right. Now coming to the other things. On collector's report on the status of Waqf property, the CJI questioned the provision in the 2025 Amended Act, Waqf Amendment Act, which allowed the suspension of the treatment of a property as Waqf until a collector or a designated officer gives a report on its status. Okay, so the CJI said that what will happen to the rent from the property? Where will it be paid? So that is why The CJI said that let it continue. No freeze on the property. Okay, you give the collector certificate that whether a property is a Waqf property or not, but don't freeze the properties until the status is granted. Okay, until the Supreme Court's final judgment comes. So these were the matters that were discussed. Now, as a convention, CJI Sanjeev Khanna recommends Justice Gawai as the successor. Okay, so Justice Gawai is not going to be now the Chief Justice of India after May 13th, when Sanjeev Khanna, Honorable CJI of India, retires. Okay, the present CJI's tenure has seen one sensational case where a fire brigade for the first time has ignited more fire than it doused. Yashwant Verma case, right? Apart from that, many important cases were decided by Sanjeev Khanna as the Justice of the Supreme Court. But during his tenure as CJI, an important matter, this is Waqf Amendment Act is one of the important matters. Then how the judiciary is going to deal with the cases like Yashwant Verma in the future, the important milestone has been set by Honorable Justice Sanjeev Verma. Justice Gawai was one of the members on the bench, one of the judges on the bench, which decided Ranveer Allahabadia case also, and then electoral bonds case also. So many important cases have been decided by Justice Gawai. What is here in the technical side? Under the memorandum of procedure for appointment of CJI, the Supreme Court judges, the law ministry seeks the recommendation from the outgoing CJI, in this case from Justice Sanjeev Khanna, as to who is going to be your predecessor. Who is going to be your successor rather. Okay, the letter from the government kickstarts the process of appointment of the next CJI. So as per the memorandum of procedure for appointment of CJI and other judges, the law ministry, the union law ministry writes a letter to CJI as to who should be the next CJI. As a convention, the incumbent CJI, the present CJI, will suggest the name of the senior most judge of the Supreme Court. Is the advice of the collegium necessary here? Is the 4 judges consultation necessary here? No. Only CJI's letter recommending the next CJI is enough. CJI's consent is required. That's it. So since Justice Gawai is a judge of clean character, no allegations of corruption or misbehavior or incapacity, that is why his name would as a convention be recommended. Clear? Days after a single judge of the High Court, Justice Ram Manohar. So this is something else. Some clipping has remained. Now coming to the other aspect, Tamil Nadu government forms a panel on autonomy of states amid verbal brawls or brush-ups with the central government. Right? So this is what is happening. Just give me 1 minute. There is somebody at the door, guys. So this is there. Now, sorry for the interregnum. Now, Justice Korea Joseph has been appointed as the chairperson of the panel of the State Committee on Center-State Relations. Tamil Nadu is going to face elections in 2026. So that is why M.K. Stalin, the Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, is more vocal about states' autonomy, states' language, need, and various other controversies. Now he's got a shot in the arm after the Supreme Court judgment on governor's misconduct. Governor's long reservation of bills, okay, non-assenting to the bills by R.N. Ravi. He's got a kind of boost of energy. That is why he's now appointed a committee headed by former Justice of the Supreme Court, that is Korea Joseph. Okay, Korea Joseph is an eminent judge of the Supreme Court, has been an eminent judge of the Supreme Court, now retired. Earlier also, Raja Mannar committee was appointed by the Tamil Nadu government to suggest upon center-state relations. Ordinarily, it is the central government which appoints the Commission on Center-State Relations. Okay, so Commission on Center-State Relations are appointed by whom? Sarkaria Commission, Panchi Commission. Okay, then these two are appointed by the central government. Okay, ordinarily this happens. Raja Mannar committee was appointed by the Tamil Nadu government earlier. Now, Justice Korea Joseph Committee has again been appointed by Tamil Nadu to suggest upon matters like to review the constitutional provisions, laws, rules and policies with respect to center-state relations, to recommend ways to restore subjects moved from state list to the concurrent list. Now, I ask you a question. What were the subjects that have been moved from the concurrent list, from the state list to the concurrent list? When were they removed? Basic details. Since the matter has appeared in the newspaper, this appearance in the newspaper becomes a trigger factor for UPSC to ask a question around those things. Now, that is why I've told you about the details about Raja Mannar Committee. This was appointed by Tamil Nadu. 2 commissions study their salient recommendations. If any editorial comes, we will be covering them in the news analysis here itself, right? Now, to propose measures for the states to overcome administrative challenges. What are the administrative challenges? Cases being referred to CBI, transfer and promotion of IAS officers, suspension of IAS officers, like that. Okay, then how to spend on the schemes, PM Shri scheme controversies going on, right? Now, to suggest reforms to ensure maximum autonomy for states without compromising the unity and integrity of nation. So, this is there. To consider the recommendations of Raja Mannar Committee, the previous committee appointed by the Tamil Nadu government. To consider the recommendations and subsequent commissions formed by the union government on center-state relations. So, these were there. Now, this is the question that has been asked by UPSC previously in the year 2000. Okay, so which of the following suggested that governor should be an eminent person from outside the state and should be detached figure without intense political links or should not have taken part in the politics in the recent past? Raja Mannar Committee 1969, Sarkaria Commission 1983 or National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution 2000. I think this was a 2020 question of UPSC, but this is an official question. Okay, so this is how the questions have been framed by the UPSC around these things. Even though a committee is appointed by the center, but its name might figure in one of the questions, in any of the questions asked by UPSC. This was all in today's news analysis. I would like to wrap up the session here. We have covered 6-7 news articles and concerted discussion has happened on Waqf Amendment Act, etc. Please answer the questions that have been asked in the news analysis. For the PDF, the link is given in the Telegram. Link of the Telegram channel is given in the description box of this video. Thank you guys. It was a pleasure teaching you. See you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you. Bye-bye.